And there's people who connect with the group classes. They like the energy of the group classes. For me, it was like, it's more of a personal thing. And so I wanted to give people that same opportunity that I had at the beginning of my yoga practice, that same ability to connect in a home practice. And it was freely given to me. So I was like, I'm gonna find a way to freely give this to people. So when the idea came up of a YouTube channel, I was like, oh, that's perfect.
That's Tim Senesi, and this is the Yoga Life podcast. Hello everyone. This isn't a commercial. I don't have a sponsor yet, but I have some questions for you, and it sounds a bit like an infomercial. Are you a yoga teacher? Would you like to create video content? Are you unsure as to how to do this? Perhaps you're even a little bit apprehensive about putting yourself out there. Well, someone who's done this to a very high standard is Tim Senesi. When I first started yoga, I found that my home practice got quite stale, and I was looking for ideas. So went onto YouTube to put in yoga for men, yoga for inflexible people, which I was and still am sometimes, and Tim's name came up. Tim has been one of the pioneers of the online yoga video space, and he's done it with a camera, a microphone, an internet connection, and a YouTube account. And from there, he's amassed 22,000 subscribers. He's constantly evolving, understanding that at the beginning, it wasn't perfect, but he's learnt his process. He's been consistent. And to know that by listening to this podcast, listening to this episode, you could do the same thing if you really believe you can. So I hope you learned something from this. You feel inspired. If you do and you enjoy it, please leave me a review on iTunes. Questions, I love them. Send them on to me about Tim, about any episode you heard before. And what I'm looking to do is eventually start some Q&A episodes where you ask questions and I try to answer them. So without further ado, here's Tim. All right, let's do this. Hey Tim, how's it going?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm very well, thanks. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with me. Are you in California?
I am in California. I'm in Southern California.
I was just looking through your schedule, and I can see Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, Costa Mesa. It sounds like a nice place.
Yeah, it's a really nice place. I grew up around here, went to school in San Diego, which is just a little south of here, and then moved back after school and started teaching.
Okay. So you have family around where you live and work?
Yeah, I have family pretty close by.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I first came across you on YouTube, which I'm sure a lot of people did, and this month, as in what month? We're in January now, so actually in December, I tried to record for the first time some online videos, and my God, it's difficult. It is so. I'll run you through my disaster of an experience essentially,
okay.
and maybe you can relate to this, and this is why I wanted to. Not just yet, but get some tips off you. So I essentially set up the cameras. I had two cameras working. Maybe I kind of bit off more than I can chew just by having two cameras. And the first 20 minutes I shot, the mic wasn't on. Then I redid it. The mic wasn't on. Then I redid it. The second camera wasn't recording at all. So I was looking at one camera and only one was actually recording. So I had to redo it again. And the third time I did it, I didn't actually clap. You know when you in order to sync the sound, you can clap. I forgot to clap, so it was just impossible for me to line up the audio and the visual. And I just thought to myself, I went away from it and I went onto YouTube and I was like, who's doing this well? And I thought, of course, yoga with Tim. So that's why I'm interested. That's part of why I wanted to speak to you. But so can we start from the beginning, which is generally the best place to start, I suppose.
That's a good place.
I was doing a little bit of research about you, as I do with all my guests, and would it be right in saying that you owe your start in yoga to the Chiquita Banana Man?
That's right.
Would you mind explaining that?
I could, yeah. So I'll just go back just a tiny bit from there to give a little backstory. Like when I was in high school, I kind of noticed people who were manifesting and trying to live the the dream of materialism, like the American dream or the middle class dream or whatever, that I was just noticing that all these people were deeply unhappy. I could see like my parents and my friends' parents, and I grew up in what should have been people who were living the dream and should have been like deeply contented. And so I saw that, and I saw like all this going, what the culture of Orange County, and I didn't want any of that, and I wanted to try to find a way to help people really find like what the purpose of living here on earth was, because I was like, these people are missing the mark. And so a lot of it was like ego, and when you're young you're like, oh, I know the best way. So I was on a mission to find the best way. And so I became a psychology major because I thought that through studying the mind and studying psychology. So I was close to getting the right way. But so anyway, as a psych major, I had this class. It was like psychology of the aging, like how we should help with elderly people are aging, because you start to get all these issues going on. So the class was specifically for that, and the teacher she's like, I'm gonna have somebody come on who's like the mark of mental health, and this is a great way that you can help people. And if you're going to be working with these people, it's you can encourage them to exercise and eat healthy. And so this guy, that's the backstory, he was the Chiquita banana guy. When I was a kid, there was these commercials where there's this older guy like running and jumping hurdles, and he was in the Olympics for elderly people. And he's like, every day I eat a Chiquita banana, and that's how I stay healthy. And so this guy came to our class and shared a little bit about his whole experience. And he was like, yeah. He's like, I'm paid by Chiquita banana to say that. I eat Chiquita banana. But the real secret to my health is that I eat clean, and every morning I wake up and I stretch and I go upside down. And I was like, oh, wow, I don't do that. Like, I was trying to be healthy. I was jogging. I was working out at the gym. But it still wasn't. I was like, okay, if I start stretching and going upside down, I think that's going to be really important for my health. And that was how. And at the gym that I went to at school, they would have all these flyers for the yoga classes. Yoga was still pretty new at that point. It was pretty far out, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Like, lots of my friends thought yoga was pretty weird. And I was the only guy who took the class. And I just figured, like, oh, if I go to this hour-long yoga class, they'll make me stretch and they'll teach me how to go upside down. So I started going.
And I don't mean to age you, and you look great. So, how many years ago was that?
Oh, man. So that was 16 years ago.
Okay. But I imagine in California that, or in America in general, that it was funny. I was thinking at that time, surely there'd be as many men doing yoga as women. But as you said, you were the only guy in the class. Did you find that a little bit intimidating?
For sure. And I would like, of course, like ego being involved, I would look at these girls who could do a lot of this stuff really easily. And then I was like, I gotta be better than these girls at doing yoga. Like, they're doing all the vinyasas. I can't do. Man, I'm like shaking and like dripping, but I'm not gonna let these girls be better at me than you. So, anyways, there was like that, and then, but other than that, it wasn't as intimidating because it was like a college setting. So it was there was like a lot of beautiful girls taking the class, and I was like, oh, all right, this is not so bad.
Yeah, because in Ireland, oh, sorry, Tim, go on.
No, that's it. What were you going to say about an island?
I was just saying, Ireland, it's very much like that. There's very few guys still, just because we haven't. Yoga's so new here. It's we're still on catch up, really. So, from going to practicing yoga to going to teaching, how did that transition happen?
It happened pretty naturally. So one of my teachers saw how dedicated I was and how interested I was, and he would just start asking me about what's going on and how I got into yoga, and I would talk more and more. And he would give me books, he'd give me videos, and I was just eating up anything that I could get my hands on in yoga, and I kind of like transitioned to anything that we had in school that was free choice, where you could kind of like write a report about whatever. Like I just wrote yoga, I gave speeches for yoga, like everything I would just talk about yoga. And I would, tell my professor, like, I'm really into yoga, do you mind if I like share about yoga in this paper? And so the teacher asked if I wanted to start a club on campus, and so I started this yoga fitness and social club with my yoga teacher Kurt, and so we kind of formed a community. And then what happened because of that, people would just start asking me questions about yoga, so it was very natural. A lot of my friends would start asking, so what's up with these yoga classes? Like, I see you going to these yoga classes. And it would be, friends would ask, could you show me some yoga poses? Like, this hurts, what should I do? And then there was one year where it was in my third year then, and I had been going home for the summer, and then I would come back, for school, and a bunch of my friends were all staying for the summer. So they're like, oh, we're just gonna get jobs and stay for the summer, and they're like, you should just teach a yoga class in town, and you could stay for the summer. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I should do that. So I found a place that would rent me a little spot, and I just started posting flyers up all over town. Like, come take this yoga class. And all my friends said, like, yeah, we'll go to your yoga class. Don't worry, it'll be full. You'll be able to stay. And one thing that I learned though is that it's very difficult to get people to do yoga. Even your friends, especially your friends, they'll say they're gonna do yoga, and then they don't show up. So what happened is like one of them showed up for a while, and I was like, oh man. But a teacher saw my flyers, a studio owner saw my flyers, and then asked if I wanted to come guest teach a class and like kind of audition. And I had no idea what I was doing. All of my education was just from reading books, studying videos, and that was how I learned sequencing, just from my own personal practice. I hadn't taken a training. And I went and auditioned for this class, and she's like, great, you're going to teach Saturday, and you're going to teach... She put me into like these main time slots. And I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. She's like, no, you're great. So that was how I got my whole start. But then after like a year of doing that, I kind of felt like a lack of integrity, because I was like, yeah, I've studied a little bit on my own, but I really don't own the material. I feel like I haven't mastered it, and I don't feel like what I'm doing is right. So I took a step back from teaching, and I did a mentorship in Iyengar yoga.
In the States?
Yeah. So luckily I had this amazing teacher that I found in Orange County, and that was kind of how I ended up back in Orange County. And she just took me on. I was like, I just finished college. I was like dirt poor, working at a restaurant, trying to figure out what my next move was, and just continuing to study yoga and looking for a great teacher. And so I found this teacher, and she just took me on and taught me for free, and it was amazing. Like the mentorship that I had with her, I learned so much from. And then after that, she passed me on to her mentoring teacher, who was in Studio City. And so then after I kind of like got everything I could from her and then continued to study with her, then I went on to this teacher in Studio City, which is in LA. And so, twice a week for 3 years, I would drive up and study with her.
And then when did you, not when, but more importantly, why did you start a YouTube channel? And I asked that because obviously there are benefits, but it's so difficult to do it well, and your videos are done really well. So yeah, what was the motivation behind starting the YouTube channel?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. So the way that I really connected in my yoga practice, like I enjoyed taking the group classes, that was cool, but really my home practice for me was the real practice. And I would kind of go to the group classes just to get ideas for my home practice. But then these after doing that for a while, the videos that my teacher gave me were how I really connected, because I would do the video and I would learn all the poses from the video, and then I would do it on my own or do it again from the video, and that's where I really felt like I was really doing yoga. And there's people who connect with the group classes, they like the energy of the group classes. For me, it was like it's more of a personal thing, and so I wanted to give people that same opportunity that I had at the beginning of my yoga practice, that same ability to connect in a home practice, and it was freely given to me. So I was like, I'm gonna find a way to freely give this to people. So when the idea came up of a YouTube channel, I was like, oh, that's perfect. This anyone can do this at home. And I had no idea what I was doing. Just like you, that when I would record, I would we'd end up, like, I remember I recorded with one of my friends, and we filmed like 3 hours of stuff, and then I figured out the mic wasn't working the whole time. I was like, so like I checked it before. I'm like, we're good to go. Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. Last week I had a girl on here by the name Elisa Luby, and we were talking about this topic of shooting online content and how she's looking to do it this year, 2019. And I was explaining that I don't know. It's almost like I don't know what the monetary value is in terms of I believe YouTube don't actually pay that well as people may think, but I think there are other benefits to having a YouTube channel, and I'm interested to see from a business point of view, have you noticed anything, or what would you say the main benefits are of you having created such a consistent and long established channel?
That's an interesting thing that is a topic that comes up a lot for me. That's kind of weird, because when I started yoga, there was no idea of a business. And people reach out to me and they're like, I'm going to take a teacher training and start a yoga business. And I'm always like, you should just go on a journey of self-discovery and then figure out if your soul or higher power is aligned with that first. So yeah, for me, like I never was business minded about yoga. Things would just flow in, ideas would just come, and then I would act on them. So for me, I had no concept of how much can you make on a YouTube channel? Is it successful? Can I grow my audience? And one of the bummers, now I don't want to be like a negative Nancy about the social media scene. Like, I think a lot of senior teachers can get real negative on it. I see so many benefits of it, bringing yoga to people who wouldn't normally get excited about yoga. But there is kind of this idea, like, I'm a brand new teacher, I'm going to start a social media platform in yoga. And when I was a brand new teacher, I really didn't have anything interesting to give. Now, that's not to say that I think people have something to give wherever they're at, and if they're really connected. But I was such a horrible teacher, to be honest, and that's why I went through the 3-year training before I really jumped back into teaching full-time. I would teach part-time throughout the training, but I really wanted to make sure that I had something to give to people, and what I was saying was accurate. And there's just so much of that energy in yoga nowadays, whereas yeah, and that's just kind of what I'll say about that. I think it should be...
I suppose everyone... Sorry, Tim, go on.
No, that's it.
I suppose everyone has a voice, don't they? If you have an online connection, an internet connection, you have a voice. Your voice can be communicated to millions, if not billions, of people. And I think that people sometimes don't think about, as you said, necessarily you didn't say verbatim, but what they don't ask themselves first, what do I know? What can I add? And they just desperate to be seen, because I think that it's very easy to feel a bit lost if you don't know how to navigate social media, you don't know how to get ahead. And because it's so driven by aesthetics, it's difficult for people that maybe are slightly introverted, or they have skills to share but that aren't that doing something physically impressive. But what I was getting at with, and that was a great answer. But I'm interested in, okay. For example, if I seen you were doing a retreat, or I seen someone else was doing a retreat, and I'd never seen them speak, never seen them teach yoga, never seen them practice yoga, but most importantly teach and get a feel for their personality, there's no way I would go on their retreat versus yours. So I think just for people listening to this episode, listen to this podcast, a lot of the people that do listen are newly qualified teachers, or they've been teaching, well, some have been teaching for years, and they think, teaching online, it kind of scares me a little bit. But I do think for building familiarity, there's nothing more powerful than video. And that's but it's a difficult process. So I don't want to be too geeky, but going to kind of deconstruct your process. What is it like for you shooting a video? Are you on your own? Do you do the lighting yourself, the cameras, audio, all that stuff, editing, the graphics, the whole lot?
Yeah, so we always do one take. There's never any editing, to make it seem more authentic, like you're really there with me. And we don't do any lighting. We're very low tech, to be honest. We could do a lot of stuff to make it seem more official and pleasing, but we could just kind of keep it kind of bare bones. We use two cameras, and we shoot with DSLRs, and yeah.
When you say weeds, you have someone else with you?
Yeah, good question. So right now, my friend who is a local student, and she kind of mentored with me for a while, and has been real dedicated. She started helping me with yoga retreats maybe like 8 years ago or so. And then so for the YouTube channel, she's like, oh, I'll help with that too. So she does, and she has a really good eye. She actually does all of my Instagram photos too. Mostly all. Yeah.
Because when you're recording with DSLRs, the limit is 20 to 30 minutes. So so I suppose is your friend there to, if the video is over 20 or 30 minutes, they're there to record if needs be?
Yeah, exactly. That's like an interesting workaround. And sometimes when she's not available, and I'll shoot, or I'll shoot with someone, I'll have someone on the channel and she's not available, I just have to like sneak off camera and like turn it off and turn it on again, and then find ways around. And then if that's the case, then we'll actually have to do a little edit to edit me out sneaking back to the camera. But yeah, that is an interesting workaround that you find out all this stuff like after you buy the equipment. You're like, oh wait, why did it turn off after 30 minutes? What's the deal here?
Yeah, you learn that one. That's the one I learned the hard way. I couldn't figure out. I was buying bigger and bigger memory cards, and then I realized, it's actually, so regardless of the memory. I know. In general, though, because you shoot solo, you shoot with the model, you've shot with a group. I was looking at the stuff you did with Yoga Works. What would you say is the biggest challenge, generally speaking, when it comes to filming?
Initially, the biggest challenge for me was being able to. I had been a group yoga class teacher for so long, and I connected with the group that I was teaching. So it was very difficult for me to teach to a camera. So the way that we started initially was we would just film me doing yoga, and then I would do a voiceover, and that was pretty easy. But then for time's sake, we're like, this takes double the time. I should just teach right to the camera. So then that was very difficult when I was trying to teach to the camera, because I was really stale. Like if you look at some of those first videos where I'm trying to teach to the camera, I'm like, I go into my yoga mode when I'm doing yoga, which is like I draw completely inward. Like my you can see my eyes. I'm doing my dristi. Totally shutting inward, and for that I kind of like watched. There's this one yoga teacher called Yoga with Adrienne, and she's a trained actor. So when you really pick up that vibe when she teaches. So I kind of had to like learn how to teach. So I watched a lot of her or some of her stuff and saw like, oh, she's really engaging. She's not really doing yoga. She's more just engaging with the camera. And I also my sister is an actor, and so she would be like, okay, you look ridiculous. Like you gotta talk like this more, and make eye contact with the camera. And I was like, oh, okay. So anyways, yeah, there's a little bit of that.
Yeah, and I think one thing you said on your website is that, to quote it says same yoga, same teacher, different movements, and that is actually what's most important is to me, because when I use Yoga Glow, for example, I go with either Dice E Decline 90% of the time, and maybe the other 10% I go with Jason Crandall. Mm-hmm. So I don't actually go because it's Yoga Glow. I go because I visit the site because of the teacher.
Right.
And therefore, as you said on your site, it's building that relationship with the same teacher.
Right.
Is more important.
Oh, you got to check out T.S. Little sometime. Have you ever watched his stuff?
No.
Oh man, that guy is so far out. I took a whole training with him. Well, he's on Yoga Glow, or Glow.
Oh,
as
yes.
Called now.
Yeah, Glow. That's it. T.S. Okay, I'll have a look at him.
He's amazing.
All right. Yeah. When you say he's far out, what does that mean? We don't use that expression here.
Far out, like he's just on a whole different trip. Like, how to explain it? You can tell he's into a lot of different movement methods that aren't really yoga based. And so he introduces a lot of that, and he's a guy who's been through it. He's been teaching yoga since I think like the early 80s or late 70s, and he just has a lot of richness and perspective.
Okay, I'll check him out. Yeah, I really like that when people introduce different movement practices. For example, Dicey Decline. He will do a lot of mobility work. He'll do a lot of functional movement as well. And I did my 300 hours with him and his partner, Bryony.
Oh,
and
you
I
did?
get why.
In Thailand?
Yeah. No, it's actually in Dublin. It was the
they
first
have one
one.
in Dublin.
Yeah, that was their first European one. They did it last year.
Oh,
and,
so cool.
Yeah, it was cool. But I remember distinctly he was teaching some mobility, and I could tell some people in the class were like, this isn't typical yoga. And I asked him that. I said, what would you say, because I like all this stuff, I want to teach it too, what would you say if someone said this isn't yoga? And he said, well, it's your intention behind it, which I think is so true, because I actually met, funny enough, just a moment ago, I just came back from having lunch with a studio owner here in Dublin who teaches Iyengar. He's very, very highly qualified. He's like as highly qualified as you can be in the Iyengar world, and
which is so intense to get highly qualified in that.
Oh man, he was running me through it. They really put him through the mill.
Before you have to study for 3 years before they'll even give you a certificate to teach like 10 poses. You can't teach anything except these 10. We don't even trust you to teach anything besides these 10 poses. Yeah. It's pretty
How far
rigorous.
did you go? How far did you go with your Iyengar studies?
I just did the 3-year thing, and then my mentoring teacher went on sabbatical, and I got classes at Yogurts, and then like I fell off with the whole thing. So yeah, I'm not a very good example of the program.
Well, I think I love a bit of Iyengar, but what we were talking at our lunch meeting, we were talking about how if you're only allowed to teach Iyengar, then it really restricts you from a business point of view. In Dublin, anyway, there's not enough demand. There's not enough demand for just Iyengar. People are coming now to yoga, and they want to practice movement. And there's I don't know if I'm living in my own echo chamber here, but I've noticed from social media that there's movement studios opening in Dublin, and they literally call them movement studios.
Really?
And if you look at their stuff online, it looks very much like a lot of yoga.
Mm-hmm.
So I think from it's important to keep, as you said on your site, different movements, to keep evolving the practice, not the same sequences done the same way.
Definitely.
I think. So, Tim, you're a busy man. You teach 6 days a week, public classes. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you surf as well. What do you do when you're not teaching?
When I'm not teaching, well, just for a moment, I'd just like to go back to the movement thing, because it's an interesting concept. And you mentioned this teacher that you're interested in on Instagram before we started recording. And I think that, and I'll just go briefly on this before I address the other question.
No, this is good. This is good stuff.
Yeah. So what I noticed is a lot of teachers who have been really dedicated to yoga started to get these common injuries: hip injuries, low back injuries, for vinyasa teachers, shoulder injuries. Because of the repetitive nature of vinyasa yoga for the shoulders and the lower back, and then because of the aggressive standing poses done without any warm-up in hatha and Iyengar yoga, people would blow out their hips, knees, things like that. And so I started noticing a lot of these injuries. And so when I started studying anatomy more, I had this local anatomy geek friend who's just helped me a ton. She's an ART and an osteopath as well, and she studies with Dr. Guy Voyer. So I've just soaked up so much knowledge from her. And so I just started to learn about like how your body really needs different functional movement besides just what we're doing in yoga. Like holding the static poses is so amazing, and it's definitely part of your overall health picture. But we need other types of movement to be able to engage the muscles. So in the 30-day challenge that I'm doing right now, I actually introduce a whole like series of movement and exercise kind of program that needs to be mastered before people can do vinyasa. People think they could just go to a vinyasa yoga class right off the bat, but if you don't properly prepare the body, in my opinion, you're just setting yourself up for injuring your lower back or your shoulder. And I see it all the time, like, because I teach these level 2 classes. I'll see people come to the studio brand new and they're like, oh, I'm already fit, I want to take your level 2 class. I'm like, that's not how yoga works. You can't just jump straight into it, because level 2 is an advanced class. So there's certain things that we just kind of take for granted as vinyasa yoga teachers, that people are able to activate these muscles in their body that in most modern human beings, because of all the sedentary and all the sitting, sedentary lifestyle, and then all the sitting that we do, that the postural chain is just so weak and stiff. So that's something that I really emphasize now in this 30-day challenge that I'm doing. And
it does. That's a really good point about the vinyasa in particular, because people are going from sitting 8 hours a day to going into a class, and as you know, when you're in a class setting and it comes to the time to take a vinyasa, people tend to just fly through it, and the teacher will just go, and vinyasa, sometimes. And people are looking around, just copying everyone else. And the amount your shoulder has to do to take that sequence is and bear all that weight, if you're not used to that, it's and as you said, repeating, doing it so many times within an hour, and if you do that 5 days a week, there's injuries is going to happen.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that it is easier to go through the motions as a practitioner and also as a teacher and just say, okay, chaturanga, up dog, down dog. But when I think that's why it's really important to re-examine your own practice. I mean, I have a bit of a dodgy shoulder, just probably from that, actually, just doing loads of vinyasas. And I think it's important to practice other movement practices. It's good English by me. I mean, you're a fit, strong guy, and I've seen that you surf and stuff. What do you do then off the mat to outside of yoga? Not just from a physical point of view, but because you're doing retreats, you're teaching online. So outside of actual yoga, what do you like to do?
That's a great question. Well, every morning I wake up and I have my morning ritual where I do my meditation, and I'll read something, some type of like a meditation guide, like Paramahansa Yogananda has a great one, or more recently I've become interested in A Course in Miracles, which offers great meditation guides, and so I'll do like a little meditation and sit, and that's how I start my day always. For me, like a lot of yoga practice was discipline, and so that discipline of like getting my lens right for the day is so key. So that's my daily thing, and then depends on what time I teach in the morning. My schedule varies with private clients and then group classes. So I'll get a surf in if the waves are good, and then pretty much teaching all day from that. Yeah, a lot of teaching, and then maybe some internet work. Surfing is, besides yoga, surfing is my main passion. Maybe a little skateboarding too. Although I've sustained some pretty heavy injuries, so I've backed off from the skateboarding more recently.
Yeah, your ankles must take a pounding in skateboarding.
Oh man, I messed up my ankle so bad, but I learned a ton about the kinetic chain from the foot, of how it can mess up your knee and your hip and your back. So yeah, I've learned so much from it.
You got a good life, man. Sounds good. I mean, yeah, that's really that's a great balance to have. And so I got some Larry King style quick fire questions for you.
Okay, let's do it.
Did you ever watch Larry King when he does? I think it's Larry King Live. It's on YouTube. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen how he does that.
Yeah. Okay. So it's if you only knew. Yeah, quickfire, exactly. So it's if you only knew. So essentially, I'd ask you the question, you answer it. I don't give any response or any follow up. I just move on to the next question.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first one is a big one. What drives you? As in, not a car. Like what motivates you?
Yeah. What drives me is being able to see with clarity and help others to see that way.
Nice. Favorite city and why?
I like San Diego. It's really good waves there in the winter. But I'm content where I'm at. So yeah, I guess I could say right where I'm at.
Okay. Your first job?
My first job was at In-N-Out Burger, which is like a famous California burger place.
Okay. Good burgers?
Oh, they're the best in the world yeah, for sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a great job.
Oh,
I learned a lot working there.
Okay. All right. Person from history you wish you could take to lunch, dead or alive?
Nikola Tesla.
Nice. Yeah. I assume, did you watch the Joe Rogan podcast with Elon Musk?
I did.
Oh, man, phenomenal.
Yeah.
I've watched it twice, but okay. This is a strange one, but this is straight from Larry King, and maybe you have one too. Have you had a weird fan encounter? Not.
I've had really rad fan encounters. I've never had a super weird one. I've had cool ones, like people paddle up to me, like I'm in a foreign, like deep in Costa Rica, like at some like unknown spot, and like someone paddle up to me like, "Hey, do your yoga videos." So I could say that's the weirdest.
Yeah. Okay. What's your biggest pet peeve?
With
You
yoga
see,
or
you seem like a very tolerant. You tolerate a lot. You're a very calm guy. But what's the one thing that gets under your skin? It can be like a kind of
bad
funny thing. It doesn't have to
chaturangas?
be. No, I mean, in life,
In life. Hmm.
like a human behavior. That's a pet peeve.
Yeah, I can get sometimes judgmental when I feel like people um, uh, maybe a pet peeve would be like unaware drivers. Yeah, that's a good one because I spend a
What was
lot
the
of
one?
time on the road.
Bad drivers.
Yeah, unaware drivers. You're
Yeah,
just like, hey,
because
wake up.
where you are, you got to drive everywhere, haven't you? You can't. There's no public transport. I mean, it wouldn't be ideal, I imagine. Or-
Yeah, yeah. No, there's it's definitely this was the this area was built around the automobile,
Okay,
whether it's
perfect.
conspiratorial or no, but yeah, you got to drive everywhere, and I spend probably like 3 hours driving a day.
Whoa. Okay. If you could travel back in time to when you were 18, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
I probably wouldn't give myself. I wouldn't tell myself anything because I wouldn't want to mess up all the learning and growing that I got to do. Just say
Okay.
just be present.
Yeah. Cool. Uh, things people get wrong about you. This is the second last one.
Hmm. My last name.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, people. People would be like, "Oh, I thought you were Tim Sensei for so long. I thought you would like you would come up with a yoga name to like call yourself." You know, sometimes people come up with yoga names. It's kind of funny when people
Yeah.
do that. Like, I'm Shakti Tim or whatever, something like that. So people thought I was like calling myself Tim Sensei, but my last name is Senesi, which is an Italian last name. I think
Mm.
it's actually pronounced Senesi, is what sometimes Italians tell me that I'm butchering my own last name. So yeah, it's not
Okay.
Sensei. I didn't change it.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool though, Sensei. But okay, so your last name, perfect. Last question of the episode. If you weren't a yoga teacher, what would you be?
That's a good question. I probably maybe I would have been a psychologist or an anthropology teacher because I did cultural anthropology and medical anthropology as my master's. I was so close to being a cultural anthropology teacher, but then I got all these
Hmm.
classes at Yoga Works locally, so I was super close to doing one of those things.
Cool. That's great, Tim. So if people want to find you, they can obviously go to YouTube. Your 30-day challenge, you're in the second week now, are you?
That's right.
Okay, perfect. And was it yoga with Tim they'd go to, or Tim Senesi yoga?
That's a good question. In the transition, I've got this website right now called timsenesiyoga.com. That's the best
Hmm.
place to go until I get the other one, the old one, all tweaked over. And then the
Sweet.
yoga channel they can check out is called Yoga with Tim.
Nice. Perfect, Tim. Well, thanks so much for speaking with me.
Yeah, you're. Oh, there's one other way too on the Instagram. I got to promote all the
Of
channels.
course.
They can check it it's at Tim Senesi Yoga on the Instagram. You can check out all
Yeah,
those
man.
things.
Nice one. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I
Cool.
really appreciate it.
That's all. Thanks as always for listening. Please leave a review on iTunes if you like it. Send me an email, a text message. Find me on Instagram if you've got any questions. Chat to you next week. Have a good one. And there it is, folks. Hope you enjoyed. Next week, I got with me Tim Senesi of Yoga with Tim. If you're not familiar with his channel, he's on YouTube. He has been producing high quality videos for years. He's got over 21,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're interested in teaching online and you're not sure how to get onto the major platforms, you can do it yourself using YouTube. And Tim has pioneered this. So that's next week. If you've got any questions for Tim between now and then, get in touch with me. Leave me a voice note on my Instagram direct messages, or you can message me through Facebook, Kevin Boy Yoga. Thanks as always. If you have a chance to leave a review on iTunes, that'd be great. And I'll be chatting to you next week.